Hi, my name is Tom Chick. I'm a necromancer with a suit of armor and these kind of dragon ghost wings. There's me waving. I'm sitting here with Bruce Geryk. Bruce, what are you? What's going on there?
I'm a guardian, which is another word for paladin. In this world, they don't have paladins; they have guardians. Just to, you know, be more fair to people who guard things for a living.
And where are we today?
Gosh, that's a good question, but I'm glad you asked. That we are in something called Lion's Gate, named after the.
No, that's the movie studio, Geryk.
Oh, right. Yeah.
We're in
Let me try
Lion's
again.
Arch.
Yeah, okay, that's right. Yeah, we're in Lion's Arch, and we are in the world of Emery Bay.
Oh no, well yeah, that's just a server. Guild Wars
Oh,
2,
oh,
Lion's Arch.
okay.
And we're just hanging out, enjoying the view here. I don't know. Do you know the backstory of Lion's Arch? It's a very storied place.
Really?
They
You're
had
using that word as a kind of like a double entendre.
no, just single entendre.
Oh, a single. Okay.
They
All
they
right.
had a 9/11 kind of event.
Really?
Yeah. Wait, this is the rebuilt Lion's Arch. Where we're looking, I think over to the right a little bit. Do you see that weird sort of curly Q spire, like kind of in front of you?
Yeah. Huh?
That used to be a lighthouse that these giant crab people, they're the metaphor for the Al Qaeda, they
Oh,
came and they knocked it down. Like
huh. Why did they do that?
well, because they're evil.
Oh, I see.
They're evil and something evil wizard something.
Okay. Well, you.
So we went over to their island and killed them.
Oh, you did?
Well, yeah, as a group, yeah, it's like group questing to do that. And
Really?
then since then, because they ruined Lion's Arch, since then it's been rebuilt into this nautical motif that you see now. Over here's a can't really tell. You have to pull back a little bit. There's a giant lobster right in front of
Oh.
us.
Oh, wait, look at the lobster.
Yeah. And before
Oh,
we
yeah,
were
look
at
at
a at an octopus, which is guarding the vault.
that.
So, all right. So why are we here in Guild Wars 2?
Well, I think we're here because, we just thought we would go and have some conversations about various things, and this looked like a good place to, catch some sun, look at the sea, hear some seagulls, that
Why
kind of
aren't we playing Chaos Reborn?
thing. There are a lot of reasons.
What? I can only think of one. Alive.
Oh, there's only one reason, actually. You're right. That there's this thing. They basically, I was reading the explanation for this that people don't like the random number generator in the game. First of all, it's bias, and second of all,
Because by the way, Geryk, when you roll, when you have a 90% chance of something to happen, and it doesn't happen, that's broken.
right, because 90% chance means it's pretty much going to happen.
Well, not pretty
So
much. It is going to happen. When would you
yeah,
ever not do something that has a 90% chance of succeeding?
if
When
I
would
were
you ever
afraid of
like
it
opt
failing,
not to take that like hit on an orc or whatever?
probably about 10% of the time.
See, you're using math, and that's kind of doesn't really work for some people.
Yeah. Well, the weird thing I read that the developer Julian Gollop, who, by the way, for people who don't know, although I don't know who doesn't know, basically designed XCOM, the first XCOM. He said that the amount of negative feedback they were getting
Yeah.
from players was torpedoing their sales. It's amazing to me.
I kind of have to sympathize with that. I mean, from a business perspective, I sympathize with that. But from a game design perspective, it really dilutes. They went to this deterministic model where you just always do a certain amount of damage, and the
Right.
creatures all have hit points instead of dying instantly. So from a business model, I guess I understand why they did that. But from a game design perspective, it just kills what made Chaos Reborn so good.
Yeah, I think that well, I see this in other games too. A game that we both have played in the past, Twilight Struggle. There was an interesting game I played against somebody, and I have to say I did get a few lucky rolls, that kind of thing, lucky plays, good cards when I needed them. But as we got to the end of the game, the guy all of a sudden said, "I cannot say this is a good game." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "I can't say good game to you because it was not."
Oh, he didn't. He refused to GG.
Yes.
He
And so,
declined to GG. That's poor sportsmanship.
well, I inquired further because I thought maybe his G key was broken or something like that. But no, his keyboard worked fine. But he felt that the game had not been a good game because I had gotten too much luck. And I'll be the first to agree that I had probably the better die rolls when it mattered, or the better cards when it mattered. But my point to him was that was part of the game, right? That the randomness part of Twilight Struggle. It's a sort of influence, placement, territory control card draw game thing. That the randomness is the whole point of the game, because you're presented with certain situations in which you have a hand, and some of those cards are good for you and some are bad, and you have to minimize the effect of the bad cards and sort of maximize the effect of the good cards. And sometimes you have a lot of good cards, but a lot of you don't have so many good cards. But he said, no, that's not how it is. And I said, well, what sometimes you get luck, and that's just random numbers. And he said, no, random number is sometimes you get a good event and then I get a good event.
He wants randomness to be evenly distributed.
Yes, that was right.
Right, and that's not the nature of randomness. Yeah.
No, it's not.
Now, to be fair, by the way, real quick, to Chaos Reborn, you can still play the original mode. They've divided into Law mode and Chaos mode, which is kind of cute naming it those two things. Yeah. So it's not like they changed the game for those of us who like Chaos mode. My argument with it isn't so much that they made it available. I mean, they've splintered the community, for one thing. That's bad news, especially for a small player base like that. But to be fair to them, they didn't get rid of the randomness. They just gave players an option to get away from the randomness. Now, and also to almost play devil's advocate, did you know this guy personally who refused to GG you?
No, he didn't.
Yeah, that's especially poor sportsmanship. You can do that to your buddies, but when you do that to a stranger, you're just throwing a tantrum and you're a jerk. Right. But to his point, though, the randomness in Twilight Struggle, I've had this said to me before, and I think I've mentioned it to you, way too much depends on the variability of a D6 roll. Like, there are key moments in the game that depend on a D6 roll.
Agreed.
And if that had been somehow weighted with, like, 2d6, for instance, where you're more likely to get a 7, I think I might feel a little better about how important those moments were. But it just seems weird. I think that Twilight Struggle was developed on the cusp of as we were learning how to make good board games.
Really?
Yeah. And Anand Gupta, is that his name?
Yes.
If he'd waited a little bit longer until we invented more technology about good game design, he would have made that D6 like a 2d6, or he would have done something to keep it from basically driving the game so dramatically at key points. Because a D6 is a terrible thing to rest your randomness on.
You mean because it's has such a wide range of equally weighted, disparate outcomes?
Yeah, it's not like 2d6. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the distribution is different. Sure. I mean, if you still have a, I mean, I guess
it gets to your friend's point, not your friend. It gets to your opponent's point, though, that you should win and then I should win. The D6 does nothing to mitigate the extreme randomness affecting a game, which is otherwise a lot of careful strategic thought.
Well, but I mean, your point presumes that you then make the die rolls, somehow, weight them so that the goal that the target die roll is easier to achieve or more predictably achievable, right? Because if you decide that the die roll is going to be needs to be something that's once you do that, then the modifiers start changing. I mean, I guess you'd have to kind of redesign the game. But
someone's talking to us. Sorry, lady, we're having a conversation here. Thanks for the history. This is kind of like when it's kind of like when people come up to you and offer you, like, you're with a girl and they're like, "Hey, do you want to buy a rose for your girlfriend?"
Right.
And it's like, "Look, lady, we're having a conversation here. I'm not wooing her."
Yeah. You're not my girlfriend, that's for sure.
Well, that also, we don't need a history of lines. I gave all that. I told her all this.
Upon sweeping views of the bay.
Can I escape out of that?
No. There's no escaping out of environments.
The excessive use of materials.
Oh, okay.
All right.
And those.
She's not happy with the lobster as part of the redesign.
Oh, really? Well, she should probably post on the Guild Wars forums.
Yeah, exactly. Lady, go to the Guild Wars forums. I think she's on her way. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, you were saying about the D6, like it would definitely require a redesign, and that's why I say that if Twilight Struggle had been designed maybe 2-3 years later, you wouldn't have that D6 having such a pivotal role. Because we've learned That's another thing. Like Twilight Struggle, randomness in games. Twilight Struggle does a great job with the randomness of cards, but then it also throws in the randomness of a D6. And is that too much randomness?
Well, too much for what is the question, right?
For a game that is otherwise so meticulously about what is your strategy, how well do you know the cards, when you're going to play this, territory control, like that D6 can subvert so much other stuff. I can be super good at the game, but if I get that 6 on or if you get that 6 on a crucial point, my skill advantage is completely subverted. Not completely, but it's dramatically subverted.
I'm not sure I agree with you there. I think that if the skill advantages are if the skills are very unequal, then the skilled player is going to put the unskilled player in so many positions where they have to make so many decisions that they're just not the. I don't think a couple lucky coup die rolls or a couple unsuccessful coup die rolls are not going to make or break you, right? I mean, I've seen players who the first. The first die roll of the game is I coup Italy and the Soviets could take Italy or something else, and you get a couple unsuccessful die rolls in Iran, and then they just quit right on the first turn. Which even when things are that skewed at the beginning, you could easily turn the game around. I mean, the game really does. I think its saving grace is that it accommodates those rules. That the D sometimes the D6 is pretty fickle when you're playing. When there's some result that is really going to turn the game. But usually you get there because the players are so equally matched. Because they've played the game very well back and forth, and there's one good card player, one country that you need to take, or you get a lucky roll on a 6, and you take a protected country. Somebody's protected South Korea and with Taiwan and Japan, and they get a 6 and they roll it. Sometimes that'll happen, but my argument would be that unless the players are almost equally matched, those rolls are not going to be enough to turn the game.
One of the things I love about randomness is it can cover for a lack of skill. Like when I'm learning a new game, I feel if there's some randomness in it, the more the better.
Right.
Like anything to rescue me or to maybe that I can sort of say, well, the dice didn't go there. Or where I can let my lack of how much I know about the game just sort of ride on the die roll or the card draws. Like randomness, it's part of the problem with playing like these relentlessly Euro games where there's no randomness. I mean, those are great. Tigris and Euphrates, well, there is randomness with tile draws there.
Yeah, tile draws was absolutely.
Well, chess, no randomness in chess.
Well, chess, yeah. I know how often you play chess.
Oh, good Lord! If I never play chess again, that's fine with me.
Yeah. Well, I think. Go ahead.
What's a game? Can you think of a game that has too much randomness? Like you're saying you're okay with how it works in Twilight Struggle. Is there a game where you feel there's too much randomness?
You mean like a Euro game?
Any game. Like for instance, that's how some people feel. Chaos Reborn. I'm sitting here saying, a D6 in Twilight Struggle is overpowered. Yeah. Well, Chaos Reborn, you get a lucky. Like I have a 90% chance.
Right.
You have a 10% chance to kill my wizard with some Hail Mary spell you're casting, and it pays off, and you've won the whole game there.
Right.
And I'm okay with that for some reason, but here I am complaining about a D6 in Twilight Struggle. Is that an example of too much randomness?
I don't know if there's too much. I mean, it depends on how you look at each game, right? I mean, if each game, if the game is something that we're going to have a determination as to who gets sent to prison for life, then no, I don't want to play a game where it's basically my skill is completely subverted to the random number generator, unless I'm bad at the game. But I see a lot of games especially like Chaos Reborn, right? And the game doesn't take that long, especially if you're playing in real time. The game doesn't take that long, so if I play against somebody who's always doing the Hail Mary play, right, that they're always trying to kill me with a 10% shot, but leaving themselves open to other things, then they'll hopefully they'll win 1 out of 10 times,
right? And
hopefully my skill will compensate for that. Will take advantage of them, and I'll win more times. That's just like Twilight Struggle. Even the best players that. Except for Brian Reynolds, who I've never beaten, but I've even seen he has lost games, and there are players that are much better than I am. I can see that I've beaten through a combination of playing better than I usually do, and also getting a few good die rolls. But those games I've played like 200 games of Twilight Struggle, so if I'm perfectly fine having a game in which 10% of the time my skill is overridden by the luck. Now, if it were a game that took 6 months and it ended up riding on a die roll, that would I would be unpleasant. But it's a game.
Do you know the game Terra Mystica by any chance?
Yeah, I do know it. I haven't played it.
No randomness in that, by the way. I don't think. But it's this fantasy themed. The theming's a little bit. Now the theming isn't in Ameritrashy. Like you're not going to get cool little pictures or figures and stuff. But it's fantasy themed, a lot of asymmetry. As far as I'm recalling, I don't think there's any randomness in it. It's completely like if you had some sort of deep, what is it, big blue computer mind,
Deep blue.
Yeah, deep blue is something else. If you had a big blue computer mind, you could just look a certain number of moves ahead. I think you could always win Terra Mystica. Yeah, but that's a game with like no randomness. That it's tough
Do you
to play.
enjoy those games?
No, I do. I love Terra Mystica. I think it's a great design, but I do feel a little vulnerable when there's no randomness. Like there's nothing's going to save me. It's all on me. I can't. The gods of chance aren't going to have my back.
So your friend Kyle wins all the time.
Anybody, yeah, there's certain people that I will not play games without randomness with because they have calculator brains. And that's not fair.
Yeah.
And those people know that randomness can be my saving grace. It can
Yeah. You need a brain
rescue me.
transplant, I guess.
I do. I can think of a game that has too much randomness.
What's that?
And I think that over the years, we have realized it has too much randomness. And other
Parcheesi.
designer... Pardon?
Parcheesi.
What is Parcheesi? Is that the one with the little pegs in the board?
Yeah. No, that's cribbage. I know. Sorry, I interrupted you. You were going to say Parcheesi, but I preempted you, so now you have to think of something else. So what is the other?
Well, yeah, Parcheesi might have too much randomness. I don't know, but these are nobody play. See, those games like Parcheesi and chess were before we knew good game design, Geryk. Okay. Those games don't count in these discussions.
Okay,
that's as far as I'm concerned.
All right.
We know that they have game design flaws. We're talking about things. It's only in the last 10 years that we've known how to design good games.
Okay,
especially board games. So one of the things that happened in the last 10 years, about 10 or so years ago, probably way more than that, there's a game called Magic the Gathering. Yes. Now, there's a very different randomness with dice and cards, and you and I have talked about that before. I love the randomness with cards. Magic the Gathering came out with this idea that you would have these lands. Your economy was based on how many land cards were in your deck. And you could be totally hamstrung by having, you'd have a great deck, you know the game super well, but you didn't draw the lands you needed to get your game going. It's another short game, too. Like Chaos Reborn, matches are over fairly quickly. So if you get screwed by your land distribution not coinciding with the randomness of your draws, too bad, you lose the game. So over the years, what has happened, Geryk, with CCGs is what Hearthstone has come to today, where on the first turn, everybody has 1 point of economy. On the second turn, they have 2 points of economy. On the third turn, 3 points of economy. The economy moves at a deterministic rate. Now, you can influence it with certain cards. To leave the randomness of the card draw, that, what cards you're going to play is then at the mercy of the randomness of the card draw. But the economy that drives the basic gameplay is uncoupled from that randomness. And I kind of feel it's because CCG designers realized Magic the Gathering sucks. It's a bad design. We're going to fix it.
You think it sucks?
Oh, I think it's horrible. It's one of the last CCGs I'd ever want to play. Last games, period, I'd ever want to play.
Well, now, didn't they mitigate that the land, whatever you call it, land drought thing by saying that you had to, that all matches were basically best 2 out of 3?
Maybe, but that doesn't... okay, well... What if I just want to play one match, though? What if I don't have time for 3 of them?
That's not sanctioned. That's an asterisk.
Right. Well, there you go, Geryk. That's an example of them conceding, yeah, our design screwed up. We have to fix it by making it best 2 out of 3.
Interesting.
And to be fair, I haven't played Magic in forever. I'm sure they've done other things to fix it. But in the meantime, better CCGs have come along learning from their mistakes, I guess. Yeah.
Now, would you say that if you added enough D6 die rolls that you would be able to salvage a game from that randomness?
Right. So a game that I've played lately is a Fantasy Flight board game called Eldritch Horror, which is all this like Lovecraft. It's barely even a game. It's sort of a goofy card/dice-driven emergent narrative that is a lot of times just silly. But I enjoy sort of seeing how those things unfold. The randomness in that is mitigated by, you roll a d6 and only a 5 or 6 is a good thing. That's success. 1 through 4 is a failure. So 2/3 of the time, you're going to fail. But the way it mitigates that is it's constantly throwing additional dice into the mix. Like if you're really good at something, instead of just rolling 1d6, you roll like 3d6s, hoping for that 5 or 6. So that's an example where, yeah, they're using d6s, but they're throwing a bunch of them. And that, I bet, that's Ananda Gupta would have done something like that if he'd invented Twilight Struggle a few years later, maybe, to mitigate the d6s.
Well, there's always been this idea of the bag of dice, which is that mechanic has a name, and then you add more dice, you get a better chance to succeed at whatever the thing that the die roll is trying to get you to succeed at. That's been used in war games for a long time, and some designers don't like it. I remember I talked to Mark Herman about it, and Mark Herman felt that from a historical standpoint, there's a quality to quantity that is not appropriately conveyed in the bag of dice, because you still have the possibility of complete failure, whereas very often in historical situations you wouldn't have the possibility of complete failure.
Right.
But there is a game that I think it relies on this this D6 randomness to generate its sort of narrative, which is a game I don't think you like or that you've played, but it's called Titan.
Oh, I knew you were going to bring up Titan. Wait, Titan has dice?
Yeah. Why did you think? Why did you know I was going to bring that up?
Because you love that weird. It's got that board where you put monsters down and they just march around on some weird random path.
Oh, it's not random.
They
It sure
become
isn't
other.
random.
Right. It looks random to me looking at the board. Like I look at the board and I'm sure you have some sort of matrix-like
Definite flow
view
to
where
it,
you can
yes,
make sense of
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks crazy complicated. So yeah, go ahead. So Titan. And I guess I didn't remember it has dice. I don't know it that well.
Oh, the dice are essential because, well, first of all, you use dice to move, but you also use dice in combat, and the dice are they're your standard. It's totally what is the quintessential bag of dice, which is that you have a lot of dice, and then some creatures are big and strong but very clumsy, what you would call it, and so they have to roll. Their skill level is low, and then some creatures are sort of quick and skilled, but they don't have a lot of dice, and so their skill level is high. They don't get to roll a lot of dice. The big clumsy creatures get to roll a lot of dice, but their skill's low. So when you pair a high skill versus a low skill character or creature, the low skill guy has to roll a lot higher on the dice for a success than the high skill guy. And then as you move up, and there's a sort of a pyramid of creatures, you eventually get up to creatures that have both high skill and a lot of dice. So
that sounds really cool. Why don't I like Titan?
I'm not really quite sure, because the key to the whole way that this works is that inevitably you will have battles in which you seem you're completely outclassed, but your opponent gives you that, just like you said, 10% shot at your wizard, and you go and you fly that whatever gargoyle or some silly creature up against the other player's Titan, because that Titan is a game where if you kill your avatar, the Titan, then you lose. That player that you've killed is out of the game. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes you have these things where, and the Titan's a great multiplayer game. It's like 4 people because they're all sort of jockeying against each other, and so when 2 players fight, it stops the game. So the other players have to watch that battle. But it's a great spectator sport in that sense, and one of the things it relies on is the fact that if one player makes a mistake or gets too cocky or says, oh, he'll never roll 6 6s on that, with that guy, or he'll never roll 5 6s or something like that, and leaves himself open so that he can win the battle and preserve some creatures, because the whole thing is that the creatures that you lose in the battle are dead. Mm-hmm. So you might be trying to protect some important creatures because you're going to be using them for recruiting up the scale. And then that gives your opponent a chance to fly in or get around the corner and attack your Titan. And then all of a sudden, he rolls, 10 dice, and all 10 of them are 4, 5, or 6. And you're dead.
Haha.
And, and
After Scarlet destroyed
that's all the other... Oh, there's a
1327,
tour guide that's going to tell us the same thing that they told us
Council
before.
held a competition for the rebuild effort. The brightest
And that's a really
architects from
interesting
around Tyria submitted their design proposals,
mechanic, I think, because
including one
it
very
leads to
talented
randomness.
student.
That
But
randomness
alas,
doesn't
her
feel
brilliant vision for the new
so
Lion's
out of
Arch
place.
proved too
There are ways to
forward-thinking
mitigate
for
it.
the
Sometimes it just
small
happens,
minds
but it
of the
also
council.
creates sort of a spectacle for the other players, because there's been so many games. I've played Titan hundreds of times, where you're playing with 6 people, and the people that have been eliminated just sit around and watch the battles and sort of kibitz and go, oh, you'll never kill him. Oh, it's amazing. He died. You made that mistake, etc., etc. So I think that takes the whole this multiplayer idea and makes it much more interesting as a spectator game for the people that aren't actively playing, because there is that chance of complete random outcome.
Right.
It's not common, but it can happen.
How old is Titan?
Titan was designed in 1980.
Yeah, that's why I don't play it.
Yeah.
It's way, way before we invented good board game design.
Oh, yeah.
So
well,
I'm sure there's some other issue with it.
Yeah, there's probably broken in other ways, but I would strongly suggest you at least read the rules. It's called the Law of Titan. The Law of Titan is available online.
Well, I actually have Titan on my iPad. So
yes, excellent. Yes, you do.
Yeah,
that's true. There's an iPad Titan app.
We hear those bells? Did you hear those? Do you know what those mean?
Are they the bells of St. Mary's?
I don't think there's a St. Mary's in Lion's Arch. I could be wrong.
Okay.
I think it means it's time for us to go do our dailies in Guild Wars 2, Geryk.
Okay. Well, I'll have to I'll have to gear up here. So if you'll excuse me, I'll just switch some things out of my inventory.
Yeah, good. So let's. Why can't I stand up? There we go. All right. So thanks for joining us. We're gonna be back and talk about another topic next week. What's our topic gonna be? We don't know. Why don't folks tune in and find out?
Excellent.
All right, Geryk, let's go do some dailies. Here we go.
All right, here we go. I'll follow you.
All right.
What are you doing?